when it happened. I know you were there. I can prove that you were there. And if you don't tell me the truth about what happened now, then you're going to have to forever live with the fact that you lied about it, and then it's going to come out in court that we know he was in the house and he's lying about it, and that looks awful. That looks like you knew exactly what you were doing.
This was the exact moment Stephen Williams realized that the detective had him cornered and that he had nowhere else to go. The woman in question was Stephen's ex-wife, Tricia Todd, who mysteriously vanished from the face of the planet one day, never to return again. On the 27th of April 2017, Tricia Todd was supposed to pick up their daughter Faith from the babysitter. However, weirdly enough, she didn't show up. Her family went to her house to check to see if she was there. She wasn't. To their surprise, the house was left with all the lights on and a full bag of fresh groceries on the counter. It seemed like Tricia had just disappeared out of thin air without leaving any traces. The only person who had been with her on the night of her disappearance was, well, you guessed it, Stephen. Initially, police suspected no foul play in the matter. It was only when they discovered Tricia's private journal that it would all change. From the outside, Stephen and Tricia's divorce seemed peaceful and unproblematic. However, according to her journal, that was far from the truth. Apparently, Stephen had a darker side to him, filled with violence and abuse. Police didn't waste any time and immediately brought Stephen into questioning as the primary suspect in the case. And it was here that everything would slowly unravel, showing just how sinister Stephen really was.
All right, listen, I want to kind of talk to you about what's going on with this, okay? And I've been involved with this case from the beginning, okay? You've already heard about all the stuff that we got. I mean, there's no question about what happened that night. We know that it's more than you're telling us. We know that you were involved with her death. We know that.
What the detective does here might seem like a small thing, but it's actually a really effective tactic. Interrogators often try to trick the suspect into a confession by overstating the strength of the evidence they have. However, as the detective will soon realize, these small tricks won't work on Stephen. He's an Air Force sergeant and received special military training. He knows every trick in the book. So instead of trying to intimidate him, Detective Duloc shifts his demeanor from threatening to friendly, a move that would turn out to be the ultimate key to Stephen's mind.
Okay. And the thing that we're trying to do here is, I talked to you earlier. You're a nice guy. I like you. I mean, I think we could be friends, in different circumstances. But here's the thing. So I've seen you, okay? I've done a lot of research on your background. And I know what it was like with Tricia. I know what kind of stuff you went through. I know she had a wild streak when she was younger. I know what she did. And she came after you, in that domestic thing that happened before. I know how that started, okay? We've seen the reports. We know how it all happened. We know she went back and said, no, the whole thing was made up because she started it. I think probably what happened was something more like she started something that night.
What a lot of people don't know about interrogations is that the detective is allowed to lie without any repercussions. They usually act like your friend and tell you all the things you like to hear until the perfect moment when they drop the hammer on you. Detective Duloc talks almost uninterrupted for the next 30 minutes, pretending to be Stephen's friend. By doing this, he has given himself more room to turn up the heat a little bit, which is exactly what he's about to do.
I know that what you're telling us about coming back from the gas station, I know that's a lie. I know that's a lie. And I can prove that's a lie. And I don't want that to be the last lie that you tell us. I need you to tell us
I can't tell
the
you
truth.
anything else because I don't know anything else to tell you.
You do. And I know you do.
Else, it's another story. And no matter what I tell you, it's not going to be the truth according to you. So what do you want me to tell you
Here's the thing about the stories, okay? Every time you tell us some version of what happened, it gets closer to the truth.
On the night of Tricia's disappearance, Stephen had visited her house in Florida to see their daughter, Faith. Tricia's house would become a crucial part of the evidence later on, as this was the last place Trisha was seen alive. Later that night, CCTV cameras at a gas station show Stephen driving Trisha's car. Now, why would he be driving her car? Seems a little suspicious. 45 minutes has passed since the interrogation started, and the detective still hasn't been able to crack Stephen's shield. The police already know that Stephen was at Trisha's house when she died, but they don't know much more than that. The situation is beginning to get more and more dire, and as a result, the detective starts upping the pressure in the hopes of cracking Stephen.
You were there when she was injured, and that she was injured in some way that was not a direct attack from you, but I think that you have more information about what actually happened to her, because I know you were in the house with her when it happened. Is that true?
No. I never laid a hand on her.
Okay, no, listen, I know, and you tell me that, okay, and you're using very specific language. So tell me, I'm not saying that you laid a hand on her, but I know that you were there when she was injured. So you need to explain to us how it was she became injured, because this whole thing where you came back from the gas station and you just found her like that, I know that's not true. And I can prove that's not true.
Up until this point, Stephen's story has been that he came back to the house after being at the gas station to find Trisha laying lifeless on the floor. The detective has forensic evidence disproving Stephen's story. However, going to trial on that is not enough. He has to be 100% sure that they have enough evidence to convict him. So the detective continues pressuring.
Okay, I can prove that you were at the house with Trisha when she was injured. I can prove that. So the question lies with you as to, you're the only one who was there with her. Like I said, you're the only person who can tell us what happened. So this is your opportunity to tell us what happened in the house before you left, because that's when I know she was injured, and I can prove that. What I need to know is what happened in the house.
It took almost 20 minutes of Duloch's masterful interrogation skills to break Stephen's shield. And oh boy, did he crumble. Remember, when he said this in the beginning of the interrogation,
I didn't do anything to her. I'm
so
telling
what-
you I didn't do anything.
so what happened?
I never hurt her. I didn't push her. I didn't shove her. I didn't do anything to that woman.
well, that has now mysteriously been changed to this.
It just escalated, and then I just moved her away, and then she slipped. And that's when she freaking fell, and I'm like, oh shit. I asked her if she was okay. It was like a weird sound. She didn't say anything, though. And then I freaking panicked, and then I just freaking panicked. And then all I'm thinking is, great, now I've pushed her, and she's hurt her head, and I'm done.
Stephen knows he just made a grave mistake, and it is here that his demeanor completely shifts from being confident and self-assured to being weak and afraid.
Sorry.
I just tried to de-escalate the situation because I couldn't get out. I didn't know where to go. I couldn't even just leave. Like, all I wanted to do was just leave. I just wanted nothing to do with that.
Notice how his body language has completely changed. In the start of the interrogation, he is sitting right across from the detective, looking straight into his eyes. Now, he is avoiding eye contact and sitting at an off angle. These are clear signs to Detective Duloch that he is getting closer and closer to the truth. Stephen's description of Tricia's death was very vague and lacked a lot of details. Suspects tend to downplay the brutality of their crimes to try to look more innocent. Duloch knows this and is 100% certain that Stephen is withholding details. However, to prove his theory, he needs to find one crucial thing: Tricia's body. Her body would have all the evidence about how she really died.
Now you know the next question I'm going to ask you. Okay? And I know you don't want to, but we need to know where Tricia is.
I don't know, and
I
I really
know.
don't have a freaking clue where that was. I
But-
just panicked, and I just drove. And I can't take her to where she
But
is, and I'm still screwed because
We gotta try to
I can't
remember.
remember that. I don't know where that was.
Okay.
It was just a random place. I have no idea where I
Well,
was.
let me just try to understand through the rest of the evening, okay?
Stephen pretends to not know where he hid the body because he knows if they find it, he's completely screwed. His body language imitates that of a person who is blatantly lying. Detective Dulock's spider senses are tingling. He knows he is onto something and decides to keep pressuring Stephen.
I know you don't think you remember, but I know you remember. If we can work through this, I think you can figure this out, okay?
I don't know
So
where that stupid place
just
is.
work with me for a minute, okay?
I don't know. I just spaced and I just drove and I just tried to think and clear my head and figure it out and what now, and then I just realized that I'm screwed. Like, I'm just
Okay.
done. There's nothing I'm just going to prison. Like, screw it.
So-
I'm going to prison no matter what I do at this point. It just
At this point, Stephen is just trying to sound as confused and dazed as possible in order to drag the interrogation out. According to him, he drove out some random forest when he just laid her on the ground, not even trying to cover her up. However, as it would soon turn out, he did something much more sinister than that.
Okay, here's the next thing now I need to understand. When you got to where Trisha ended up, where did you put her? Okay.
I laid her down.
Okay.
I took her out of the car and I just laid her down. And she just looked peaceful and sweet, like what I remember her.
Did
And
you?
I didn't even try to cover her up. I just laid her down.
So
because I
she
was
wasn't-
hoping beyond belief that she would be okay. I just
Well,
didn't.
you knew she was peaceful. You knew she was at peace at that time.
Later on in the case, it was revealed that Stephen had been lying all along. He leveraged the fact that the investigators couldn't find Trisha's body to buy himself a more lenient sentence. A month after the interrogation, Stephen entered a plea deal in exchange for giving a full confession of what really happened between him and Tricia Todd and to reveal where her body was. A month prior to the murder, Stephen had dug a 3-foot grave at the Hungryland Wildlife Reserve. This was the forest that he was vaguely describing in the interrogation. He had also purchased acid, which he brought with him on his visit to Trisha's house. His plan wasn't to visit his daughter. No, he was there only for Trisha. Investigators believe that Stephen strangled Trisha, then drove her out to the coordinated burial site to get rid of the body. Before burying her, Stephen used a chainsaw to chop her up into little pieces. From here, he put her remains inside a 2x3 plastic box and then buried it. Scattered around the burial site, law enforcement also found Trisha's teeth and fingertips, which Stephen had cut off to make the identification process more difficult. In normal circumstances, a case of this brutality would definitely result in a death sentence. However, because of the plea deal Stephen signed moments before confessing, he was only sentenced to a mere 35 years in prison.